you again for joining us today as we discuss how technology can help you provide a safer, more productive office for your employees and visitors. And we do have an exciting offer for those of you attending today, a free, no obligation initial consultation with one of our solutions architects to better understand your current environment and learn ways DataVox Technology Solutions can help you. If you would like to take us up on this offer, please complete the survey at the end of the event and let us know what solutions you'd like to review from this webinar, and we will get that scheduled for you. This offer is exclusive to those attending live today. So before we get started, I would like to quickly review our disclaimer. This presentation is not intended to constitute legal or medical advice as it relates to COVID-19. You are encouraged to consult with your attorney or any relevant experts as it applies to your business. All right, now that we have reviewed the features of this webinar, I would like to introduce our presenters today from left to right, DataVox's Director of Physical Security, Scott Ferguson, our Vice President of Audiovisual, John Layton, and our Vice President of Building Technology Solutions, Mike Bebchuk. Okay, John, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Just a brief agenda of what we're going to be covering today. First off, a brief recap of the return, or part one of this series that we conducted. Then we're going to talk about some survey data, not only from those of you that are attending, but from in the Houston area that we've gathered we thought was worth sharing with you. Then we're going to talk about hybrid workforce and technology solutions. And then we'll dive into each one of those areas of expertise as we all, with Mike on building, Scott on physical security, and myself on audiovisual. So with that, let's start with a quick recap of our part one in this series. You know, a couple of high points of what we talked about in that series is that when we found it extremely useful to make sure you establish a COVID team within your organization with clearly defined job duties. You know, typically that team is going to involve HR, an executive representation, somebody in the operations side, so you're getting feedback from all aspects of your business. And then you want to make sure you have a communication plan that you utilize and that you are communicating clearly with all your employees, and that they know that there is a plan for every situation. And by that I mean to say, you know, what happens when you have an employee test positive? What's the policy? What's the procedure to do? Who do we have to notify? Who has to quarantine if those things are necessary? And then you want to make sure your facilities are prepared as needed. That means, you know, what do you have plans do you have placed in for social distancing? For, you know, maybe you have a cubicle area and everybody sits really tightly fit. Employees may not feel safe in that environment, and so you need to accommodate for that. Make sure you got signage and messaging to tell employees what to expect and reminders. Make sure you have an infection prevention protocol, right? What is your policy in terms of masks, sanitizer? Is this still a no-touch office? Are we allowed to handshake? Those types of things are important, just so everyone knows what's expected when they get back to the office. And then understand that some of your employees will have personal challenges that they're trying to deal with. Maybe they have a specific personal medical case that makes them more susceptible to potential COVID, or maybe they have family members that are immune compromised, that them coming to office puts their family at higher risk. So you have to be aware of those things. And then finally, just make sure you're consistent. Whatever policies you develop that work for your organization, make sure you enforce them consistently. That will get you a ton of buy-in from your employees and them feel comfortable coming back to the workspace. So those are just some high level from the first session. So moving on into some of the data, you know, we did a survey when you registered that who is attending today. So here's kind of the status of those of you that are attending. 50% of you are at limited capacity right now in your offices. 33% of you have not returned to the office, and 10% are fully returned to the office. In DataVox's perspective, we recently returned to full status of work. So we actually never closed during COVID because of our status, but we're back to full capacity in our office. So it's been an interesting experience. And then one of the other questions we wanted to share with you guys is, what collaboration platform are you using in your business today? And overwhelming majority, 67%, are using Microsoft Teams, another 28% are using Zoom, and 5% are not using any. So there's a handful, a couple other solutions out there, but these are definitely the two most prevalent that people adopted over the last year. So, Mike, over to you.
Thanks, John. We wanted to share with everyone a survey that the Greater Houston Partnership pulled together, and they sent out a survey to their member companies, their board of directors, and there was some great feedback on when people are returning to the office. And you can see by the pie chart on the right, almost 70% of people and companies will be back by October, which is very encouraging to see. The survey included businesses of all sizes, of all different size of companies, but 28% are already back by September. Another, 50% in total will be back. So it's very encouraging to see.
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting, and where 80% of the respondents will be in the office 3 or more days a week. And we can see the future of the office being more of a hybrid type of environment. There'll be some remote work, but there'll be some companies that are be in the office 100% of the time. But there's a lot to consider. It's the new norm, and there'll be some significant changes going forward.
Yeah, Mike, one thing I found interesting in this result was that over 80% of the respondents also said that the decision to open their office will be made locally. For those that are national organizations or international companies, that they're leaving it to the local office to make that determination. So, and I think that's the way it should be, because we know different areas of the country are experiencing different levels, and some are still having spikes. And Texas, we're very fortunate, doing very well as it stands right now. So,
Agreed.
Interesting note there. So, Mike, you mentioned the hybrid work week. Scott, you got a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I'm a big stat guy, but this hybrid work week, because not everybody's going to be at the office technically every single day, right? And that's the concept behind this hybrid workforce or hybrid work week. So there's going to be some days that you might have an alternating schedule with one of your peers, and I think most of the time you're going to have, even though most people are returning full time, I think that you're going to have still those just hybrid work week, that alternating schedule, pretty prevalent in the upcoming weeks, months.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit further on that when we get to the audiovisual section, but how do you support that hybrid work week, right? Because meetings, somebody's always going to be remote now. I mean, I've heard that from a number of businesses. There probably will never be another meeting where everybody's actually in the room. There will always be somebody that's participating remotely. So how do you support that? And we'll talk about that when we get to the AV practice on that.
Yeah, so these vaccine and events, it's interesting that 3/4 or like 75%, so this is most, will encourage, but they won't require their employees to get the COVID-19 vaccine before work. So, obviously large majority, that 6% have decided they will require, vaccines for employees. 19% had no formal plan.
Right.
So they're still up in the air about this. And then 46% of these respondents indicate that they're uncomfortable attending these, in-person events. So I think that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, I know we miss hosting events at our facility and are looking forward to getting back to those as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. In fact, we're participating in an event this week in Austin, I think tomorrow and Thursday. It's an open show called Tag and M. So we're excited about that and actually getting in front of people once again. And so it's encouraging to see that maybe normalcy is getting closer to reality once again. So, next item up, I thought this was another interesting study or some results here. And if you look at these first three, these are all about human interaction. 90% of people are excited about reuniting with their colleagues, being around one another. 82% have a greater appreciation for company culture and being in that environment on a daily basis. And then 83% desire face-to-face interaction. Human beings are creatures of I mean, we need human interaction. We need touch with one another. It's just really important. And then, 64% are excited about actually using tools in the office. I never thought I'd see that number, but the fact that they're looking forward to getting back and using some of the tools to participate with those that are not in the office, I think is really encouraging. So Mike, over to some of the building technology it's going to take to make all this work.
Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of things to consider. Fortunately, there's technology available to give people confidence when they return, because you want to promote the healthy building, and employees want to see that you've done everything that you can to have that healthy building. And we're going to focus, which was front and center, is indoor air quality, right? We spend 90% of our time indoors. And with what's gone on over the last 15 months, indoor air quality is really a big part of the conversation. So we're going to talk about technology that will help you monitor and manage indoor air quality. We're going to look a little bit deeper at the different types of technology. We're going to look at the systems to help mitigate that risk, some of the air purification systems that people are deploying. And then we're going to look at the HVAC technologies available today. I know there's been a lot of improvements with HVAC that's ongoing. And what's interesting is, even some of the stimulus money is dedicated around HVAC improvements in the K through 12 market and some other public sector entities. So it's pretty amazing. So indoor air quality, what is all this? What are the airborne pollutants that we're trying to monitor? What is VOC levels? What is PM10, PM 2.5? Why are humidity levels important? Well, the idea that over the last 15 months you heard where if humidity threshold drops before a specific threshold, that would promote the transmission of airborne contaminants. CO2 levels. The increase of CO2 is a good indicator of the lack of fresh air in a space.
Yeah, it's funny, we talked about CO2, and I was reading a study from audiovisual, and sometimes you come back from a big lunch and you get into a meeting, and the meeting's packed full of people. Used to be prior to COVID. You had a lot of people in the space, and you get sleep, and you're wondering, well, is it what I had for lunch that's causing me to get sleepy? Is it just afternoon, or is it that I've got high CO2 level because I got a bunch of people crammed into this room, and the air quality is dipping as the meeting goes on? And I think that's a valid concern that maybe people weren't paying attention to. Yeah,
and the technology today, and we'll go in a couple slides, show you what's possible, and it'll give you real-time visibility and what your air quality looks like. But there's industry standards today around air quality in buildings, and everyone meets those minimum standards, but people are wanting to take it to another level. So they can guarantee the air quality when their employees come back. Particularly no matter what is it. It's the air pollution, and John, the next slide is the air pollution, and it's pretty remarkable, the air that we breathe and all the air pollution that's potentially indoors. And it's measured in microns, so when you see a PM 2.5, it's measuring all those non-visible particulates in the air. And what's remarkable is this technology, this sensor technology, is picking up particulates all the way down to the virus level. And so, well, why is that important? I mean, the idea that you can have a droplet in the air for almost 3 hours if fresh air is not continually cycling through the space and in the rooms. Well, you want to know that. You want to get an alert if that's happening in your space. So this is just a snapshot of the potential air pollution in our space.
This makes sense why I have such bad allergies, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so a lot of these, I mean, you make a great point, Scott, triggers folks that have underlying conditions. I mean, I'm from Houston, I have allergies, and a lot of these things happen when we go into a space that's not properly ventilated. But the technology today, it's sensor technology, it's smart building technology, it's cloud technology. It gives you real-time alert notifications. So if humidity levels drop, not only do we have a thumbnail view on our desktop, but we also have a mobile app, and we can get that alert and that functionality sent to us. All of these parameters can be identified with this technology. Simple to deploy, very cost effective. We have it here. In
Right,
fact, you and I we're getting alerts
right.
almost every hour about a specific area on the second floor, and we did some investigation. We thought it may be the cleaning supplies that was increasing the VOC, but I think we concluded it's coming from the kitchen area.
Yeah.
So, but
People constantly heating up food or
that's right.
stuff throughout the day.
So these are customizable sensors. So
Oops, sorry, Mike.
no, that's okay. But this is just a snapshot of what you can see on a dashboard.
Yeah, and it's interesting, what you mentioned, this PM 2.5, it's not anything you can see. Sensors can detect it, but there's nothing the human eye can see.
No.
We can, and when you get that sunlight coming in, sometimes you can see dust in the air and you're like, holy cow, I'm breathing that stuff in, but imagine all the stuff you can't see that you're breathing in.
That's
So,
right. That's right. So there's a lot of solutions today that can mitigate a lot of this risk. We have a manufacturer's rep firm that we do business with that has a 12-week backlog just to get some of these solutions in the hands of some of us that are helping our clients with. But MERV rated filters, you guys have heard about some of these technologies that you see, UVC light. I mean, all different types of pricing available. I mean, you could buy a $100 filter and get an immediate impact, or you can spend $2 to $3 grand on a 7.5 ton RT unit, rooftop unit, just by implementing UVC light. I will say this, that ASHRAE recognizes the UVC light solution. Some of the other solutions have been around forever. They're accepted, but some of the governing bodies in the business have really, or they haven't had enough of a sampling to determine the efficacy. A lot of these partners do have white papers to support their solutions, but it's interesting and the range of what's possible with air purification systems.
got it.
HVAC, you'd be surprised today how many people don't have remote capability. The idea that we were away from the office for so long and couldn't even use their mobile phone to access their HVAC system. But software is available today to help people monitor and manage and can control their HVAC. People are putting a next level of smarts into their system. So the idea that you could have a CO2 sensor in this room, and if the CO2 level is rising, the building automation immediately recognizes that, and it can increase the airflow within the space. So that's just one example of some of the smarts that this technology has. It does a lot more. The horsepower of what some of these systems.
This is kind of taking it to extreme. There's a reason why they pump oxygen into the casinos in Vegas. Keep people awake.
Keep you awake.
Keep them on the floor.
You're never tired there, right?
Right, exactly. For some reason.
Yeah. But during this process, I mean, I've found that 52% of poor air quality is due to ventilation. So I can't emphasize enough how ventilation is key to a lot of indoor.
And so, I mean, and it doesn't mean you have to necessarily replace your whole HVAC system if you have a building. It's upgrades or
That's right.
things that you can do.
Small improvements.
Small improvements can make a big difference in the healthy.
Big difference.
Okay.
So
good deal.
Indoor air quality. Scott, turn it over to you.
Screening solutions. So yeah, no, thanks, Mike. Appreciate all that information. So we're going to talk a little bit about screening solution. This is thermal scanners, visitor management type software, touchless access control. That's my new favorite. And then cloud technology, right? So you're probably familiar with the current like on-prem systems, but we'll talk a little bit about the new way to do security today. So visitor management, we're trying to help enable our customers to return back to work safely. And I think, Mike, you brought up a ton of key points. I think this is maybe one of the first steps to that, right? So whenever you have a customer, a contractor come to your office, how do you make sure that they're compliant with all your policies, right? So I'll give you a little use case, Mike. You or John, you guys have a customer or a contractor that needs to come to the office. You can send them an email, right? And in this email can include a QR code. It can include policies for screening, whether you've been recently tested for positive or Have you been in contact with anybody from COVID? You can have so many different policies in place, or send that out to your customers to make sure they're compliant. And then whenever they come to the office, right, there's embedded directions within the email, and then they can come up to this cool iPad at the front and just scan a QR code, right? So that's the first part of this touchless, trying to get away from these contact points.
Yeah,
right?
I think, Scott, so what you're saying is and I know we utilize a solution like this, right? We have a policy for visitors, but when we schedule a meeting, the system automatically sends them this policy. They get it. They know what's expected. We ask the survey questions that, like you just said, and then it really makes our employees feel a lot better about having visitors in the building, because we know we're asking those questions, and the visitors aren't surprised when they get here about, what's your mask policy? Well, we tell them that, right?
Yeah.
So they're not surprised when they get here what we are asking them to do, and I think that's avoided a lot of sticky situations, I'll put it that way.
It's sort of dummy proof, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of that first step of this contactless, right? And then after you get past the first stage of entry, you can move into a thermal screening process where you get scanned to make sure that you don't have a temperature. And obviously this can alert local, depends on where you have it, or it can alert the powers to be if you have a COVID panel like we do, right? On the touchless access control, right? So we can't solve every problem, but we can solve a lot of them, and we can reduce these touch points in our office. And this touchless access control. So I don't know, do you guys have a card? Right, so you used to have
hiding.
Right?
Yeah.
Cards.
Exactly, right? So cards, I think everybody's used to these. These are 30-year-old technology that we've had. And, I think gone are the days, right? I think it's getting very close to those just going away. Everybody carries their phone. And now there's so many ways than just your phone to access the door, right? You can do it on your Apple Watch. I know we talked about Android watches yesterday.
Yeah, you said specifically Apple. I said, do you support Android? You said we don't like Android. But then you said, yeah, we do Android. So
I'm an Apple guy. But Apple Watches on your phone. You can go up in close proximity. You could even have it set up, John, where you don't have to take anything out of your pocket. You just walk up to the door and it automatically knows it's you. So there's some nice customizable features. It goes over your Wi-Fi. If your Wi-Fi is down, it'll go over cellular. If you can't get cellular, well, then it goes to Bluetooth to the device. So there's some failover things that are involved. And
pretty resilient.
Did the pandemic accelerate a lot of this technology?
Absolutely, it did.
Yeah,
for sure. I think that not knowing where your card was one of them, because some people hadn't been in an office for 3 months. Right, so everybody knows where their phone is most of the time, and then just trying to reduce those touch points, right?
Well, the other thing too, cards aren't cheap, right?
No.
And so you got people that are going to be coming back they can't find their card, they haven't been to the office in months.
I mean, I think we charge $100-$200 for a card. Like if you lose one, they're not crazy expensive, but they add up over time, and that's also time that it takes to program it. So it's not just the physical. It's your employee.
Yeah, it's just the resource that's tasked with it. And are they in the office today? Right?
Sure.
So, gotcha. Okay.
And then cloud solutions. So a little bit goes with this on the touchless access control, because most of the touchless access control is cloud-based. But really, primarily, security has been an on-prem, or you're used to NVRs, DVRs for a long time. And until a couple of years ago, I would have never recommended cloud security to any of our customers. Just really wasn't fully baked, in my opinion. But today so many people, and most people have already moved everything, or moving a lot of applications to the cloud, like Microsoft 365, etc. But security is getting there, and it's going pretty fast right now. But being able to get like automatic updates, not have to worry about what version you're on. Right? Always being in the latest and greatest, the most secure. hosting that in a secure environment?
You know, you just mentioned security, and you got me thinking, Scott, you know, cybersecurity, right? One of the things that we've seen a renewed threat, we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but is cybersecurity, is it with everybody working from home, less secure environment, those types of things. And then we see, hey, security cameras, we've heard these stories, the camera's gotten hacked, and that's an avenue for somebody to get into your business. They really, you probably don't care what they're looking at in the camera, but it's not that they got to the camera, it's that they got in the network, and now can they get past the camera to something else. So the fact that you said cloud, you don't have to worry about updates, because how many people, I wonder, have IP cameras that they installed 10 years ago and have never updated, right? There's probably a ton of them out there.
God, that's probably the biggest problem that I see, right? People are not updating their software, not updating the camera firmware or the access control firmware. So now you're years potentially behind on software
So
updates.
your security risk is way higher. And no one would, from an IT perspective, you don't think twice about, do we have the latest antivirus on my computer? It's auto updated.
Mm-hmm.
But you got a lot of IoT, if you will, those devices out there on the physical security side that are not updated. So they could pose a risk.
Yeah. IT loves it. I think they have enough applications to update.
Right.
So this is just one less they have to worry about.
Yeah, good deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mike?
Sure. So, you know, the idea that we bring a ton of additional conference room chairs in a conference room, have people standing around, standing room only, in a training room. I think those days are in the past, right? And so, you know, people counting, occupancy sensor type solutions is also helping our clients. I mean, we implemented it right out of the gate, right? We wanted to manage occupancy in the building in certain high trafficked areas. We had it at visitor entrances, we had employee entrances, we had it in large training rooms, and we set targeted occupancy levels. And, you know, the idea that you can get real-time data and get alert notification if those thresholds have been exceeded. So we were able to manage right out of the gate.
Yeah, you know, to that end, being part of the COVID team, right? We were fortunate we'd actually put this technology in, Mike.
Yes.
You'd acquired it and said, hey, we need to be using this in our building because it's something that we're going to see before COVID even struck.
Yeah.
And so we were fortunate we had just put it in, and apologize, I got a fly that won't leave me alone. COVID just struck, and so we said, hey, wait a minute, now we can manage capacity. And as I mentioned before, you know, we never closed, right? But we certainly went to reduce capacity very early on, and having the occupancy sensors and knowing how many people we had in the building, getting alerted every hour, or whatever setup we want, was huge for us to manage capacity and know that we were keeping our employees safe.
And it's interesting, we not only got alerts on our mobile phone, our dashboards here, but we integrated some digital signage.
Absolutely.
So we made people have that self-awareness when they approached certain areas of the facility. We could have some digital content that said, stop, we're at capacity. They can go call in virtually.
Right.
So there's a lot of integration capabilities with this technology, but the idea that any building, any location, any floor, any room, you could get and manage the occupancy levels of all these different types of spaces. A lot of different use cases for this technology. I mean, think about these companies that have large portfolios of real estate, and they're trying to understand their space utilization. They're potentially repurposing space. You know, we have clients today that they were once using 4 or 5 huddle rooms are now considering an open, more collaborative space. Mm-hmm. And they're using it with the data that they receive from the dashboard. So they have it by day, by week, by month, they're getting historical data to make informed decisions.
Yeah, and some of this space, you know, you think about it, it's about how many people. It's also about how many people are not there. When is the room empty? So you see these things tied into cleaning services or the janitorial services for a facility to know that, oh, there was just a big meeting in this room and it's 2 o'clock, everybody's out of the room's empty now, a cleaning crew can go in.
That's
So
right.
Notify them that the space is available for cleaning.
It is amazing the efficiency that you can gain from these devices, and there's several different use cases. We have a university that have them on every dining hall on campus to manage the occupancy. I mean, we had a company out of Dallas asked for 150 sensors, and they wanted to see the cleaning usage so they could track those costs. And we even had one REIT here in town, a real estate investment trust, wanted to see how and if their amenity spaces are being used.
Yeah.
And so it's endless, not only about managing just the density and occupancy of the areas, but how do you use the data, right? And there's a lot of ways you can do that.
So you could deploy one or two of these at like some key entrances, or you could have it just scattered completely in every room and really get some granular information.
You can, and it's interesting, and you may want to go to the next slide, John. So there's different sensors. There's open area sensors, there's entry point sensors, there's desktop sensors. So to your point, Scott, I can drill down as granular as I want. And that's probably leading into some other technology with hoteling and hot desking. You can see here a sampling of what some of this technology looks like. Sensor technology, it's in the cloud. It has integrations to other technologies. We talked about digital signage and content that you can get. So this is another way for people to manage their space and provide that and promote a healthy environment.
Sure.
So,
I mentioned the fact that, we have these sensors in our building, and we were talking about, potentially making some changes in configuration because we don't have them in every room, right? We're one of the ones that made that decision. Hey, we need to do this on key entry points. And when COVID struck, we kind of adjusted the traffic flow in our facility and said employees need to come and leave out of these few entrances so we can keep count on people. And we were talking about it in a session and said, do we want to repurpose or change? And everybody agreed, no. We love knowing, even when COVID's finally over completely, we still want to know when we have people in the building. So what time of night is the last person out?
That's right.
That might be the cleaning crew. We could have somebody that's working late. But we know when the last person leaves the building at night.
This is a great way to understand the footprint of your space, and whether it's as small as one floor or a building like ours of 3 floors or a whole portfolio of buildings, gives you an ability to make some informed decisions and see what areas of space is being utilized.
Yeah, and I think that also helps with the comfort level of your employees, because when you're telling people, oh, we're at 50% capacity, and they're looking around going, man, there's a lot of people, and trust me, we know how many people the building normally would fit during pre-COVID, and now we know when we're back to that number on that regular day. So
I have something that you guys probably don't know that we use this for. So we looked at this for peak times, right, to see when and how. What was it from 7:30 to 8:30? That was the peak of when employees were coming. And so what we did was we opened the gate. So this is access control, right? So now we have the gate scheduled from a certain time, because we were having to call the gate guys out to fix the gate all the time because of the usage.
So you mean our gate for our parking lot that was constantly opening and closing in the morning, and just putting wear and tear on it. And so now we know. I wondered how you determined what times you.
When was the last time you got an email saying that the gate was down?
I can't remember, but it used to be pretty regular.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Exactly.
So good use of the data, Scott, and ultimately saved us money.
It is. I mean, to your point, Scott, we've had customers inquiring about these type of technologies because all the different use cases. Right? I mean, it truly is amazing.
Good deal. Okay. So kind of to recap, all those 3 things we just talked about: indoor air quality, security solutions, visitor management, touchless access, and then the building technologies that Mike touched on. All of those things equal a healthy building. So it's a lot of pieces. And what we're saying here is that you don't have to implement everything right away, because we all know people just don't have the budget to do that. But there are incremental changes you can make to your environment to make it healthier and safer for your employees and your visitors and your customers.
And everything we're talking about, almost everything we're talking about, is very quick to deploy. a lot of this technology is easy to deploy, and it's not a lot of heavy lifting on some of this stuff, if you will, that can make an immediate impact. Whether it's the virtual screening tools, some of the monitoring tools can be spun up pretty quick.
Sure.
And we know there's not a silver bullet, but a combination of one or all of these things, like you said, equal a healthy building.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, well, let's talk about my favorite subject, audiovisual. So one of the things that COVID forced upon all businesses was a need to adopt new technologies at a faster pace than any of the manufacturers of these technologies, or probably the business owners thought, or the IT staff thought they were going to be able to do or could do. And a lot of that has to come from, okay, we don't have anybody to work in the office anymore. We still have to do business. We still have to meet, collaborate. We have to meet with our customers. How are we going to do it? So, those businesses adopted a platform, right? We saw from the earlier survey that the majority of people that are on this chose Teams. A lot of people chose Zoom. I mean, you hear Zoom, they're the 800-pound gorilla that's on the radio all the time and on the news. Another great product in addition to Teams. And then Cisco WebEx, GoToMeeting, these are all platforms. I guarantee you in the last year you've participated in at least one meeting. I've had days where I've been on 6 different platforms in meetings, right? Just because different customers have different platforms, and that's okay. What we would suggest, though, is that as you look at your business, is you've got to adopt a standard for your company. And it doesn't really matter which one you pick. Pick what works best for you. And most of the conference rooms that people have in their office are internal rooms, right? They're internal meetings. So what is the platform you're using? If you're a Teams shop, then make your conference rooms Teams enabled. We'll use that phrase, Teams enabled. Doesn't mean you can't do other meetings. We'll talk about that in a second. But pick a solution that works for your business and then ride that one. Your IT team will thank you if that's the primary product they've got to support, right? As opposed to multiple platforms. And we know some organizations, it's really hard. You get some of that that rogue IT that, oh, well, sorry, we signed up for Zoom and everybody else is using Teams, right? And how do you corral those guys in? Sometimes that's a challenge. But so when you look at your space, most conference rooms were not enabled to support these meeting platforms prior to COVID. So now you're looking at coming back to the office. It's like, well, I have 2 conference rooms out of my 10 that can do video conferencing. But we said earlier, you're probably always going to have somebody that's remote in every meeting. So how do you equip these smaller spaces? Well, it doesn't have to be a full room refresh, right? You don't need to replace everything in the room to do it. There are, just like there were with some of the building technologies and security solutions, there are cost-effective, fairly quick things that you can do to a meeting room to enable it for high-quality video conferencing. And that's easy to use for end users. It's not, you could take a USB camera and stick it on top of the display, but that generally is not designed for that field of view that you need in a conference room. You're going to get a poor experience. It's not looking at your little camera that's on your laptop. So, but those are cost-effective ways you can do that. And then the other thing you need to consider is your network ready to support video conferencing? And sometimes that just takes some analysis. How many meetings do you think you're going to have, concurrent meetings that you have, where you're going to have video traversing the internet in and out of your facility? And do you have the bandwidth to support that? And then even further, does your network infrastructure support it? So those are things we can help you with, at least examine and determine, what's my plan to get here, right? What do I need to do? Where can I invest money wisely to get the best bang for the buck?
Sure. What are some of the key components in a typical conference room?
Yeah, so in this room, we're a little bit different, right? This is and this has always been a video conference room. So we have what I would say is a high-end video conference room. We've got table microphones. We have ceiling speakers. We have an audio processor that's handling the audio. We've got dual displays and a codec running the camera solution in here. That's a high-end room. But you can take a medium conference room, and there are solutions now that are just, if you will, a sound bar. But it's a sound bar that has a microphone in it, and it has a camera in it. And so it really is, attach it to the wall, hook up a couple of cables, and you're in business for video conferencing. And you may just plug in a laptop, and then an end user's using their laptop to drive the meeting. So It can be as simple as that to make a room. So there's all kinds of things in between there that you can do.
Sure. Lots of different room types, lots of different user types.
Yeah, the key is though that, and we've seen some, like I was saying before, you don't have to refresh your entire room. You know, we have people say, we just redid our conference rooms 2 years ago, but we didn't do video on all of them. I don't want to redo them all now. The displays are fine, but you don't need to replace them, right? In most cases, we can make it work if your stuff.
Add a few pieces.
Yeah, you just add a few pieces, add what you need. So, and then for the rooms you want to, or maybe they do need an upgrade, we can talk you through that. So the other question that comes into play, and I mentioned this before, is supporting multiple platforms. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter whatever platform you pick. Let's say you decide you're a Microsoft Teams shop. And so you deploy Teams, what I'll call centric rooms. So meaning that I have a Teams experience, Microsoft Teams experience on the touch panel that's in the room. Employees walk in, they know how to do it. 90% of the meetings they participate in are always internal with other employees, and everybody's using Teams. And then you get an invite for a WebEx, right? Or a GoToMeeting, or a Zoom call, what you name the other platform. And you walk in the room and you say, oh, all it does is Teams. How am I supposed to join a Zoom call? That's where we talk about supporting multiple platforms. So as I said before, pick what works for your business. We can help you design a solution that's platform agnostic. So when you have that Zoom call, your team can walk in and they essentially use their laptop. But when they use their laptop to join that Zoom call, they're using all the capabilities that are built into the room, the camera, the microphone, whatever that is. So you can still have a full experience and it acts just like it was a Zoom room, even though 90% of the time it's really a Teams room. So there are solutions that allow you to do that. And they're very cost effective. So again, design rooms to what you say your company standard is, and then equip some of them that would be a BYOD override. You don't need all of them to be able to have that capability and bring your own device. Sorry, I don't like using acronyms, but bring your own device to the meeting. And that will come down to the touch thing too. Customers or employees don't, even though we're hearing less and less about touch transmission for COVID, surface transmission of COVID, people still feel more comfortable if they're not having to touch a bunch of surfaces that other people have touched. It's not just COVID, it was common cold, it was flu, it was other things that get spread by surface transmission. So employees feel a lot more comfortable if they can walk in, maybe they touch a cable and plug it into their laptop, and then they're using their laptop to run the meeting. And they don't have to touch anything else in the room. So,
are you finding wireless really dominating? Or is it a mix still?
It depends. It's a very common feature. There are some requirements to what is your wireless network, what is the space in the room, are we riding on your wireless network, are we using proprietary wireless that's kind of built in the room, and we have technologies and manufacturer partners that we work with that cover wired, wireless, all those levels of devices. So, absolutely. So, and let me just iterate one other thing about when you think about, well, if I put all this in, how am I going to train all the users? Hey, if you have a BYOD, bring your own laptop they already know how to use their laptop. So very little training is required for them to be able to use a room. Plug in a cable and the room works and it looks like it's your camera and your speakers and microphones that were on your laptop. We're just utilizing what's in the room. So very easy to deploy and easy for you. The adoption rate's very, very high for that. So let's talk a little bit about digital signage from an audiovisual perspective in your space. As Mike mentioned, we have the ability to integrate with live data and healthy building solutions, and then curated content to keep signage fresh. Digital signage is core for communicating to your employees and visitors, right? What's expected? What are your protocols? Just reminders about washing your hands. Hopefully everybody kind of took that to heart over the last year. I think if I saw one more commercial about the wheels on the bus go round and round, just sing that while you're washing your hands and then you'll have washed your hands long enough.
I thought it was the alphabet.
Well, it's probably more than one.
But this was important to us. When we
absolutely, and we
were getting reminders.
Yeah, I mean, this is how we communicated our protocols to all our employees. It was on we have digital signage all over our facilities, so we already had this, but it was very easy to update the content and say, here's COVID protocols. Let's give people updates. So that's part of that messaging we talked about earlier when we did a recap on part one. Digital signage nowadays, there's on-prem solutions, there's cloud-based solutions, just like Scott talked about for security and for healthy building monitoring that Mike mentioned. So cloud-based solutions that are easy to manage, that's easy to update content. You no longer have to be an Adobe Photoshop wizard to do content, right? If you can do PowerPoint, you can make some pretty engaging content and put it in a digital signage platform. The best thing that IT loves about the newer signage platforms is you can share content responsibilities with others. For example, in our office, I've got folders on OneDrive that I've shared with HR. Here's a folder for you. Content will play when you drop it in this folder. So human resources has the ability to update content. And they might just be doing simple things, non-COVID related, but it could be, hey, welcome to this new employee. Here's a picture of them. Oh, I wondered who that guy was that's walking around the building, right? Happy birthday or congratulations on a certification or a promotion for employees. So those things are just standard corporate messaging, but they go a long way towards keeping that corporate culture that people miss too, and sending that message out.
What about like weather, traffic, news bulletins?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest keys that you saw with digital signage was the challenges, I should say, with digital signage was that people would do just PowerPoint, and 6 months later, it would be the same slides playing, right? Because, I forgot to update it. I don't have time to update it. So integrating with curated content, as I said before, relatively inexpensive to do, but that's live news feeds. It can be sports news. It can be scores. It can be weather and traffic. So, we have that in every one of our elevators. When you walk out, you're looking, there's a traffic feed towards the end of the day, and you're going, well, during COVID, no traffic. Let's get on the road. We can be home in 5 minutes. Now we all know if you're in Houston, you're seeing the traffic starting to come back to pre-COVID levels. And now you look at it and you see, there's a big traffic jam on 45. I might as well wait another hour before I get on the road. So employees find that useful, and they may adopt when they decide to go based on that information. So again, that's it on digital signage. The other thing I wanted to touch on, we're running a little bit short on time here, but as we've all talked about with cybersecurity, right? And in each one of our technologies, we kind of hit on this, but we can't stress it enough. As we said before, it's expected every day some of your employees are going to be working remotely. What does that mean? Well, home networks are not as secure as what you have in the office, right? So you really don't know if you have employees that are using their own devices, their own computers, their own laptops have been working at home. You have no idea if their antivirus is up to date. Are they protected, right? And so accordingly, the cybersecurity landscape, the threat landscape changed dramatically in the last year, and people are trying to get into your network from home computers. They're looking for avenues to get into, and we've seen the increase, and we've seen the news reports, ransomware attacks, all these types of things. So do you know if your policies and the tools you have are truly protecting your network, right, from a cybersecurity perspective?
I know our team has been helping our clients just with general assessments.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of getting an evaluation, where do I stand? And it could be as simple as, are all my laptops up to date with antivirus, right? What challenges do I have? So we can help you with that. That's one area of expertise that we have in our company, and something that truly has to be considered as you look. People are bringing devices back into the office and connecting to the network directly.
Yeah.
Are they secure and are they safe?
You don't know what you don't know,
Right.
You never know what's really going on until you do a deep assessment.
Sure. So I think that concludes all of our formal. So Jess, do we have any questions?
Yes, I did have a couple of questions come in. One came in early on, those stats that you were reviewing with at the beginning of the presentation. I had a question, were those stats national or local? I think I saw
The stats were local. They were from the Greater Houston Partnership and their member companies locally. And they also reached out to some of the other board of director companies, but it was all local.
Yeah, that I will say this, that's one of the challenges. It's really hard to find data. It was really great that they produced a survey and provided that, because it's so hard to find data specific to your area.
Yes.
We struggled with that before. You're looking at national data and it's getting clouded by what's going on in another state, much less another city. And we all know different cities, different states have different regulations. We're experiencing different levels of COVID, if you will. And there's all kinds of debate on who did it right and who did it best and all those types of things. So a lot yet to be decided.
I have a question here. So Mike, this is another one for Mike. I guess you're getting bombarded.
Okay.
So what's been a priority for building owners or HR facilities to help promote a healthy building? What's priority?
I think the improvements in indoor air quality has been front and center. And, yes, there's building standards that everyone has about the indoor air and what's required, ASHRAE and some of the other governing bodies. But and we found over this past 15 months that the airborne contaminants is really what drove a lot of the viral activity during the pandemic. So indoor air quality, improvements in HVAC, and it's going to be a combination of those things. I will tell you this, some of the new smart building management solutions inherently have a lot of those environmental sensors and other things that they can do and coexist with their HVAC, but it's a whole combination of things, but it's around air quality.
So Mike, what does somebody do if they're, I'm going to catch you off guard with this one, what does somebody do if they're in a multi-tenant space? Let's say they're in a 10-story building, they're only on one floor. They don't really have control over their AC, but could they at least put sensors in and know what's going on in their environment to maybe give data back to the building? Or what do those people do?
And that's what people are doing.
Okay.
They're giving people back, and hopefully they're in a building where that facility manager or building engineer is getting alerts before they're even getting those calls. And so they're doing the right thing. I know a lot of the big portfolio companies here in town that own multiple buildings, they're making significant investments in their HVAC. So
if you're a tenant in a building like that, you should be asking that facility, what are you doing for my air quality?
yes,
What are you doing as what is the building owner doing to make this safe?
yes.
That space safe for me, because I'm paying the rent. I want a safe environment for our employees.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the industry groups, the International Well Building Institute, they actually, one of their concepts is indoor air quality, and they actually suggest to show the statistics of in real time of the air quality.
So that would be using digital signage.
That's right. So having dashboards that show that type of data, so for people that would have the confidence that the building owner, management's doing the right thing. It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Got a quick question with the occupancy sensors. How does the occupancy data collection account for multiple entries by the same person on a floor?
How does it count for
multiple entries by the same person on a floor?
Well, I can speak for the one technology uses infrared laser technology that in real time is managing entrance and exits. And there's some machine learning algorithms that's taking hundreds of data points per second to know when people are coming and going. In fact, we tried it in our sensors.
Yeah, it's accurate, but the key is that you got to have a sensor at every ingress and egress point to the room or to the building.
That's right.
That you're allowing people to use, and that's where we came back. We didn't equip every entry exit point because we had some emergence, we had some stairwells that people used to use at the end of the day to go down and exit the building, and we stopped that and said you can't do that anymore. You have to go in and out not the same door that you entered the morning. You can go out either door, but we can they're clustered together and you define them in the space. It's like we have sensors on the entry and exit that count together. We have different sensors that are grouped together in a conference room that has multiple entry points, and so it knows, somebody came in, somebody came out. There's two. There's now nobody in the room, or 4 people came in this way, 3 people came out the other door, 1 person. It's smart enough to do the math.
And that's what helped us when we consolidated entrance and exits.
But it doesn't know the actual, it doesn't know it was you, Mike.
No, it's actually
that's correct. It's a good point.
It does keep privacy 100% in mind. Unlike maybe a camera, where people really aren't gravitating for that technology as much as the autonomous way that you can use this technology.
Sure,
great question.
And do we have contact tracing, or there's other ways that you can track
People
where,
tracking.
yeah,
Oh,
where an
there's-
individual is, but the occupancy is not that. It's
It's not.
privacy, it's just how many people are in
That's right.
in a given room or within your building. So
That's right.
the other thing I would say too to that end, and we're starting to see an uptick in this, and you'll see it in some of the video conference solutions. If you have a video conference camera or a codec based solution, you got a camera. Cameras can people count.
There's
They
built-in
don't know,
sensors.
and some of the video conference solutions have built-in sensors.
Yes.
They're not all fully activated, if you will, yet, where the software behind it, but the guts are there and the capabilities there. They haven't fully enabled it yet. So some cases you can use those to do occupancy within a room.
Oh, yes.
And you may, without even realizing it, a lot of buildings, in fact, I think it's a code requirement. I mean, I know in my office, there's a small occupancy sensor on my light switch because my lights turn off when I leave my office. If I walk in,
That's right.
that's an occupancy sensor.
That's
It's not detecting, it's just detecting movement. It's not counting people.
No,
So these are a little bit more advanced occupancy sensors, but
that's right. I mean, you described what's common in a lot of building spaces, right?
Right.
It's helping you manage energy as well.
yes.
So that's a little bit different than some of the technology we're talking about that takes it a step further.
Yeah, I mean, we've used occupancy sensors in audiovisual for years to determine, let's say you've got a conference room with a projector in it and there was a meeting, okay, so the system was on and everybody left and we just know there's no motion in the room, so we'll shut everything down so we don't burn out the bulb in the projector and put runtime on it that wasn't necessary. So occupancy sensors have been around a long time. This is just a refined version that can actually count ins and outs and do the math behind it with some cloud backing
That's right.
makes it easy to monitor.
Well, I don't see any other Q&A coming through. Any notes you'd like to wrap up on, gentlemen?
I think like I said it early on, there's a lot of technology available. I know there's a lot to consider. And I don't think there's one secret sauce, one silver bullet, but I think a combination of these things. Inherently, there's going to be some space planning initiatives from any design firms, but you complement that with the technology that we have. I think it go a long way for those people at your companies that still are kind of on the fence about returning. That just gives them that next level of confidence, I think.
I would agree with that, Mike, and I would say too, one of the tout DataVox is horn a little bit. One of the things that makes us a little bit different than a lot of people in town is that we can do all of these technologies. So you don't have to go to 3 different places to somebody to get security, somebody to get building, somebody to get the AV. You want an integrator that can do it all and that can have these things talk, because they are really all a converged network. And that converged network, the backbone of the network, we can support that and help you with that as well. And then layering all these tools onto it and then making sure they all play nice.
I know Scott has a lot of this technology, and you do too, on display here at our office.
Yep, absolutely.
So we would welcome an opportunity to invite anybody that may have been on the presentation day to come visit us. I mean, we can show a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
anytime. Lunch is good for me.
Are you buying or are you expecting them to bring, Scott?
I mean, I'll buy.
Okay. Just checking.
Great. That concludes our session for today. Thank you to Scott, John, and Mike for your time and a great presentation. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jessica.